You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Did he come and empty his sack all over your living room floor with lots of Star Wars goodies?
No.
Welcome to Making Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
I got Bantha.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file.
That doesn't sound too hard.
Boom! This is Making Tracks.
This is the way.
Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
I know these people. They are brutal. Does this look Jedi to you?
That's not how the Force works.
They'll never see it coming.
Count me in.
So welcome to 2025, first episode of Making Tracks for the year, and there's loads to look forward to. We've got new TV projects to come, we've got a celebration this year, but just to get things rolling before we start digging into what we're looking forward to in 2025, probably we will get a Lucasfilm Studio Showcase panel. It seems to be like the catch-all panel for anything Lucasfilm. You've had Willow in there in the past, you've had Indiana Jones, obviously Dial of Destiny a couple of years ago went in there. For big panels at Celebration, it feels like a studio showcase. It's probably the thing to do, isn't it?
It seems to be the one, doesn't it? I think they've done something like this for the last couple of celebrations, and that has kind of garnered most of the big announcements. You think, go back to Celebration Europe, 2023, and we had 3 movie announcements. That's the one, isn't it? To get your press VIPs in, the actual mainstream press and that, and get them all hyped and ready to post about it once Kathy's walked off of stage. It's kind of like, it's a good way to kick off, I think, convention anyway. For a lot of people, it swings roundabouts because they haven't streamed it, at least from the last year, maybe not the year before. So it's always a bittersweet, isn't it? It's like, if you're lucky to be in the room, great, you get all the news firsthand, you see maybe some teaser artwork or something or other. But then if you're not able to get in the room, it's just another announcement.
As you know, you can be at the convention as busy or as involved, as active and as part of it as anybody else. But like you say, if you're not in the main room, I mean, even when they have the satellite rooms, they don't always get the trailers. There's certain things that they don't see. They're people who have queued to go to this thing as much as anybody else. Another potential panel topic that could happen is The Mandalorian and Grogu. We get that film now next year, May 2026. We've got to hope that we're going to see something, maybe a clip, maybe another trailer or something from the film. But do you think that that's a possibility? Roll out Grogu, bring him on the stage, have Favreau there. I mean, if he's not filming Ahsoka, of course, which is quite a possibility.
I think it's a strong shout, depending on where are they in the production, in respect of we're still a good year or so out. Will they do a panel, or will this be rolled into the showcase? Because you kind of think they're going to be heavily into production. We're still probably too early to see anything more than what we almost saw at San Diego with those first moments. I don't necessarily think we're going to get a trailer or even a teaser trailer. I think it's maybe too early for that. So whether or not it's a standalone panel or not, that's a good question. I mean, I think probably a bigger definite would be obviously the Andor Season 2 panel.
Yeah.
Because we're looking at days before the actual series drops. We've got Celebration again, like we had with Kenobi year before, in fact, 2023. That's probably more likely, and it's a good bet that anybody at that panel might get treated to the first episode, if not the first couple of episodes of Andor Season 2, just a couple of days ahead of it dropping on Disney+.
Yeah, that makes sense. To put Mandalorian and Grogu in the showcase would seem more of a logical thing to do. We know it's coming, but as you say, we can't give too much away other than what we've probably seen before. But Andor, I think it's quite likely they'll do what they did with Kenobi and give people the opportunity to at least see an episode, if not 2. Hopefully, we know some of the cast is going to be there, so hopefully see the cast on stage as well, and also get a little bit of a more of an insight into what we've got coming from the show. Also, Star Wars Visions will be in Japan. Visions is primarily an anime-focused show.
Yeah.
Season 3 this time is more anime-focused than Season 2 was, which was a bit of a mix of styles. Feels very much like they're going to put quite a heavy focus on Visions in Japan, doesn't it?
I think it's probably a good guess. I would imagine that a lot of the merchandising is probably lent that way as well. It kind of goes hand in hand, doesn't it? And Visions Season 3, or Volume 3, as they're calling it, is going to be anime-focused. Then that's the perfect launch pad for that. Fair play, because that's got some really fantastic visual qualities about it. That is going to look good.
And 20th anniversary, Revenge of the Sith, end of the prequel trilogy. a film that was popular all over the world, no less popular in Japan than anywhere else, hoping that it gets a panel much like Phantom Menace did back in Chicago in 2019. I don't know what guests will be there from Revenge of the Sith outside of, at the moment, Anthony Daniels, who was the very first guest announced. So it'll be interesting to see if they add other actors to that. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know how many performers they're thinking of having at the show this time round, but hopefully there'll be more from Sith. Certainly get up on stage and do a panel.
Would be nice to see Hayden and Ian McDiarmid there. A little bit left field, but wouldn't it be fantastic if they wheeled out Samuel L. Jackson?
Now's the time to get Natalie Portman out. Wouldn't that be nice? Get them all out for a panel like this. And also, I just think something that got mentioned in Good Morning Tatooine this week, the thought of there maybe being a Lucas Museum, either exhibit or panel. I know that's a George thing, not a Lucasfilm thing necessarily. The two aren't completely connected like they were.
Yeah.
They will be sort of Star Wars and Lucasfilm elements to that museum. And if Goodwill being what it is, it's a great opportunity to let the world know. And there's Star Wars world. There's going to be plenty of Star Wars and Lucasfilm fans that don't know much or anything about the Lucas Museum.
It was a long time. Well, I say a long time ago. I mean, it was a while ago that was announced. I mean, that was really the first year after he sold the rights and the company to Disney. I would imagine if they're going to do anything, probably not necessarily a panel. I would probably think it could be more of a little exhibit, bit of a walkthrough, something akin to maybe like a Galaxy's Edge preview we've had before in the past. So maybe there'd be, a model of a museum, or I think it would be well worth investing the time and effort to do it. It's kind of been bubbling along, and it seems like it's imminently going to open in, what is it, 2026?
26, yeah. I think people were originally thinking 25, but we were contacted actually by the Lucas Museum to make a slight correction to a post that we'd made, an article saying, yes, it is 2026. So that's good news in that now we can sort of at least nail down the year rather than maybe a specific date. But also I think because Lucas has ploughed a lot of money into this and put a lot of money behind it to safeguard it going forward into the future, they obviously need to get the word out there to the broader world. To people who aren't Star Wars fans, this isn't just a Star Wars thing.
No.
This is American culture, American art. It's a much, much bigger thing than just Star Wars and Indiana Jones, but also to the Star Wars crowd and the Lucasfilm crowd that might not be as aware of it. Hey, this needs to go on your list of places you need to visit that are related to Star Wars. Yeah, you want to do Galaxy's Edge, and you want to do Rancho Obi-Wan before it becomes the Saga Museum, and all these other things that you could add to that list. You've got to add the Lucas Museum to it. So yeah, I think you're right. I think having an exhibit there in the way that they did that Galaxy's Edge exhibit before is probably quite a smart move if they can make it happen.
My name is Dean Charles Chapman, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
So obviously another anniversary this year, 10 years of The Force Awakens. I mean, the mind boggles, doesn't it?
Yeah,
really?
It does. It literally does. It feels like 3 or 4 years. It does not feel like remotely like 10 years. To think this time 10 years ago, we've been mates a long time, so we would have been chatting online about this 10 years ago.
Oh, we were. I'm pretty sure that we probably chatted about a trailer or something on another podcast.
I think you're probably right. I think you did, actually, yeah.
But it's funny, isn't it? Because Revenge of the Sith feels like 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
But Force Awakens doesn't feel like 10 years ago.
You're absolutely right. I don't know why that is how it is. Because when you look at Sith and you think we had that couple of years after Sith, and then Clone Wars comes along and we were thinking that Underworld was coming, but it never did. And then we had the Clone Wars era, which was sort of 2008 through to sort of 2012, and busy, very toy focused, so much going on. And we had a few celebrations in that run, didn't we? We had the first Europe, we had LA not long before that, Japan in 2008, and we had Orlando in 2010 and again in 2012. So it was a whole run of celebrations as well. It was a very busy period.
Yeah.
And you forget that 2012 was the year that the deal was struck. And at the very, very end, not October, it was announced in October, it went through in December. So the deal went through in December. Just insane. But since then, the 12, 13 years since then, seems to have gone like that in a flash.
Yeah. And I wonder if that's just because of the frequency of the films coming out after that, and then also now the frequency of the Disney Plus series. So there's always Star Wars. And because it's like it was a first film of the Disney era, feels kind of recent. There will be people who will now be able to vote who weren't even in high school when The Force Awakens came out.
There'll be parents who were kids when The Force Awakens came out.
Totally. Yeah.
And they'll have little kids now. It's crazy when you think 10 years from Star Wars coming out to the 87 when Star Tours started, and the first 10 years and that whole program that they did then. And that 10 years felt like so long. And you look back now, I think you do look back at years in a different way.
You think those first 10 years was the foundation of obviously everything that we've really got. It was 3 years between each film. And it's the same with a prequel trilogy. So that's like 3 films took 9 years to get onto our screens. So like you kind of lived with those films for like a decade almost at a time before you moved on to anything else. Now we're at that point where it's like, we've got to keep the shareholders happy. We're going to pump out a Star Wars film almost every year to get the return on our investments and all the other stuff that they wanted to do. I mean, it's cool, but it does make you pinch yourself a little bit. I mean, it would be amazing if Daisy was there, especially as she's connected, and she has an announcement imminent at some point or another about her film. You'd like to hope that there would maybe our good friend Brian Heron will rock up with BB-8 or something in his little green morph suit just to kind of make a cameo.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so that will be a good panel. It'll be an interesting panel, I think. 2 big anniversaries for 2 very, very different films as well.
Ahsoka Season 2 starts filming in the UK at Pinewood in April. By the time Celebration launches on the 18th of April, it will already be in front of the cameras. We don't know who's going to be there. Likelihood is that if there's any connection with Ahsoka Season 2, it will probably be done by live via satellite. But it does make sense to do something with that show, the next imminent thing to come. It feels like that would be a logical panel to do, doesn't it?
Yeah, but again, this is the risk of having like a showcase, but also for benefit of having a showcase, because you can go, right, okay, well, they're in production, they're in the middle of like filming, and also there's a delay, time difference between Japan and the UK. Give them 10 minutes or do a pre-recorded message with John and Dave and Rosario, what have you. Show a couple of clips. Everybody's excited. It's coming out, and we can move on to the next thing. At the same time, it would be fantastic to have Dave there, because we know Dave can control a panel and kind of really run with it. And so it'd be interesting to see. But these aren't the days of post-Clone Wars where he can sit and prosticate about what he would have done with Ahsoka. He's now doing stuff with Ahsoka. I think the thing is, it's like you've got to use Celebration to promote what's coming out imminently and then what's coming out in the future. But it's how much attention you pay to stuff that's coming out so far in advance. I mean, you think back to Celebration London. That Friday, there was so much about the Acolyte, but also the downside and my grumble, even though I saw none of it because I was busy running around the fan group's booth, when I did sit down and watch the stream, everybody went on to that Star Wars show live stage, which was fantastic. They all talked about stuff that they saw and that was shown in the panel, but then they didn't show any of the photos. Jonas up there talking about being a Wookiee, but everybody's like, but what does he look like? We've not seen him because we weren't in the panel. So it's like, they kind of need to look at that. Coming back to the whole streaming thing, and if they follow on from what they did at London and the previous one, whereby the streaming service is really focused on the live show, that kind of makes it a slightly different thing. You can have a VT played in from Dave and John and whoever. I'm not necessarily confident there'll be like a full Ahsoka panel, but there's definitely going to be some kind of content there.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video, and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
Skeleton Crew. The kids turned up on stage at Celebration Europe. They saw, I believe, the trailer. I think it was the first time they'd seen the trailer when they sat on the stage and turned around and looked up at the big screen. Very, very cool. We've got Rabbi, who plays Wim, coming to London Comic Con Spring in March. So that'll be great. And hopefully there'll be other Skeleton Crew performers getting out to shows as well. But outside of that, Skeleton Crew hasn't had much chance to shine at a celebration. So one of the ideas that John had was maybe some kind of Skeleton Crew retrospective, give us a closer look at some behind-the-scenes stuff, maybe see some of the costumes in an exhibit. Do you think that's something they should do? Because as we discuss often on Reaction Crew, it's a well-regarded show.
So I think they should definitely do that. And that's also where they should announce Skeleton Crew Season 2. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to be able to say that it's greenlit at that point. They don't necessarily need to pin down a date or anything else. But it would be great to get the showrunners on and a couple of the kids just talk about it. Maybe Jude's up for flying out to Japan for a couple of days and, a couple $100,000 worth of work. Then we can kind of talk, we can talk about it. They can talk about it and hopefully keep on that goodwill and that buzz that this show has created.
Yeah, totally. It's gone over so well with the fandom, it seems, to not monopolize and make the most of that goodwill would seem a missed opportunity. If they feel like they know they're going to do it, like you say, they don't have to give us nuts and bolts dates. They don't have to give us anything specific. But hey, if a season 2 of Skeleton Crew rocked up in 2027, around about the 50th anniversary time with those kids, the energy that they bring, I think everybody'd be happy with that.
I think if that was the case, that's definitely a torch passing moment. They just need to keep it vague like they did with Ahsoka, like season 2's in development.
Yeah.
That'll get a crowd buzzing and whooping and everything else. Although, isn't in Japan, don't they sit in silence when they really appreciate a performance and stuff?
I believe so. And it's going to be very interesting. You'll know who the foreigners are, won't you?
Exactly.
When anything gets announced and we're all going loopy like Muppets in the theatre and everybody else is sat there politely, quietly nodding.
Yeah.
We know we're going to have collecting panels. We know we're going to have literature panels. There's all the other stuff that's going to happen. So Celebration will and always is chock-a-block busy, and there'll be plenty of things going on there. Another thing that sometimes happens at Celebration, but not always, is they used to do it. They don't seem to do it so much now. They used to announce where the next celebration is going to be. Now, 2027 will probably be the next one. I'd be surprised if they did one in 26 now. It kind of feels like we'd have started to hear whispers or rumours of that.
Well, I think you skip it and then you go to Anaheim for the 50th.
It's Anaheim or Orlando, and I think logically your head says Anaheim would make the most sense. It's going to be next to a Disney park. So to do it in one of the two parks, Anaheim or Orlando. I mean, the last celebration in America was at Anaheim, but let's not forget 2010 and 2012 were both Orlando. So they have had two celebrations, one after the other, in the same location.
Well, when was the last one in Anaheim?
2022, 5 years later.
Exactly. It's not like it's back to back, is it? You know, I mean, I'm sure there will be some grumbles from like the East Coasters or something like that, but we all got to fly over there if we're going to go. But it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? It's more local, isn't it, to Lucasfilm and everything else.
With it being the 50th, are you thinking that'll be the one that you'll make the big trip over for?
I will definitely do my best. I mean, it is a big 50th, but it's not my big 50th. It's a little lady's big 50th. So, so possibly. I know there's been talk of like wanting to go on a cruise, and annoyingly, I can't even try and say, well, let's go on a galactic cruiser these days because that's
gone, yeah.
Hi, this is Ashley Eckstein, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
So sad news that ended 2024. Angus MacInnes, gold leader from A New Hope, and of course from Rogue One. He was 77 years of age. He'll be big time missed. He was always around at events and conventions. Most of us will have had the chance to either interview him or chat with him or have a word here and there. The news kind of came a little bit out of the blue, given that he was at Nashville not that long ago at the ICCC event. Mark, did you ever get a chance to meet Angus?
Do you know what? Loads, luckily, because he is such a nice guy. I've met him at so many different conventions over the years, like MCMs, London Film Comic Cons and stuff. And what's always been nice is that, I've gone up and I've shook his hand, paid for the autograph and stuff. But then most times he's come over to where the fan groups are and he's just, said, let's have a group photo. So we get all the guys and girls around and we have a lovely group photo. He was very popular and will definitely be missed by the guys up in Scotland at the Capital Sci-Fi Convention because, they had a really close relationship.
I had the chance to interview him years ago when I was running Lightsaber. And then over the years, as you say, catch him at events, saw him at Star Wars Fan Fun Day, Capital Sci-Fi. I went to a couple of them and he was there at the one. And one of our earliest Fantha photos with anyone was with Angus and with John Morton at an MCM back in late 2017. So it was very early days for Fantha. So he was, like you say, he was just always ready for a chat, and it didn't have to be a chat about Star Wars or anything else that he'd worked on. He could just chit chat about whatever. So very easygoing fella to talk to, which was amazing. Like you say, when you think of the films he'd been in like 3 different films with Harrison Ford, but just no airs or graces about it, was there?
I can remember when I saw it the first time back in 2016 when got a preview screening of Rogue One and we see actual footage of him back as Dutch. He was quite surprised and very touched by the reaction that the fandom had for that. That was just such a nice kind of moment.
Hey, it's Kyle Newman, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
So, final bit of news for this first episode of 2025 here on Making Tracks. Jake Lloyd, he was interviewed by Clayton Sandell, catching up with him after his long chat with him last year. And Jake wanted his fans to know something. He wants people to know that his schizophrenia diagnosis, which had kind of hijacked his post-Star Wars acting life, he's got it under some kind of control. He's feeling pretty good. Things are moving forward. He's making progress in all the right places. And he really wanted the fandom to know that and also thank them for the support that he's got since that interview with Clayton last year. It's a really interesting piece. It's also very heartwarming to see how close he is to his mom and how totally Team Jake they are together. They're working at this thing, making good progress, making good steps. What do you make of this, Mark? It's a tricky subject to talk about when you're not particularly au fait with the topic. It's somebody's personal struggle. It's a mental health issue. If you're not overly knowledgeable, you can very easily put your foot in it and say the wrong thing. But on the other side of the coin, it's a positive story because it's Jake and we want the best for him. And from the fandom, even though his mom says that she doesn't attribute any of his issues, and I'm using that word very carefully, nevertheless, being in the fandom as we were all the way through the prequel trilogy and beyond, that poor lad had a lot of crap thrown at him. We're in 2025 now and he's making good strides. It's a feel-good story at the moment, isn't it?
It's a very feel-good story. It's difficult for us to even understand really what he's going through, but the fact that he's got it under some kind of control is positive because it can be very debilitating, i.e. in that you can't integrate into normal society from what I understand. But I do like the fact that they've reinforced the fact that this has not directly associated with anything to do with the Star Wars fandom, but what it will come down to an extent is that one thing I am slightly more aware of is that schizophrenia does tend to be more evident in younger males who hit puberty. And so obviously because of his age, I can understand maybe there might be some people, there might have even been some, some finger pointing and accusations of people saying, look, you shouldn't have said that because look what's happened. And I'm glad that his mum's addressed that and kind of said no. But like you said, we're now in the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. We have the 25th anniversary of Phantom Menace just in the summer. And there's a lot of love for these films. And so therefore, there's a lot of love for Jake. I'll be one of the first to get my credit card out. If he was able to go back and do an appearance at a convention, I will be there. I actually was lucky enough to meet him at one of the London Film Comic Cons at Earl's Court. So this is probably, 2011, maybe 2012. And he was so nice. Got a photo with him, got an autograph, but I would love to meet him again just to show my support to him. Because obviously, the one thing you do wonder is what would have happened if he hadn't had this terrible illness? Could he have gone on to bigger and better things after Phantom Menace?
That's a great point because he was a good actor. Young actors are in our sort of line of sight now because of Skeleton Crew.
Yep.
Because of Kenobi a couple of years ago with Vivian. So good. And we've seen lots of, and even stepping outside the galaxy with things like Stranger Things, we've had great young actors doing really good work. So you think back to Jake, who's just so perfect in Phantom Menace. And yeah, he had the criticism from a fandom that didn't quite know what it was looking at. And I include myself in that, not for in any way attacking Jake, I didn't, but not quite getting Phantom Menace initially. It took time to bed in and live with it. And I think it also goes to something that, again, on Good Morning Tatooine, Paul Naylor said about the latest episode of Skeleton Crew. Watched it the first time, didn't grab him. Watched it the second time, got it, loved it. And now it's the sort of thing, because it's Star Wars, less so now than before, because there is, as you mentioned earlier, so much Star Wars now. A new Star Wars film comes out next year. We're never going to watch The Mandalorian and Grogu as many times as we've watched Empire Strikes Back. We just can't. It's not going to happen. Not only because it's not been around for the previous 45 years, but also because we're that bit older and there's that much more Star Wars to consume. I know you'll go and watch it in every format available, on every type of screen you can watch it, because that's your thing. And, and then you'll get it on home video and we'll watch it and we'll do a reaction crew. And then over time, you'll watch it as and when. But you'll never watch it like in the summer when you're a kid. So it's not like that. But Jake was such a capable young actor that, he could have done some great stuff. Obviously, he passed on the role to Hayden, and Hayden carries on with the role of Anakin Skywalker. But Jake could have very easily moved on to other roles within Star Wars. So, it's a nice what-if question. And it's not too late, because it's not like he's an old guy yet. He's still in his 30s.
Yeah, exactly. That's it for this week's episode, for the first episode of 2025 of Making Tracks. And if you would like to send in a listener's question via email or carrier pigeon or telegram, then Mr. Newbold can tell you how you can get in touch.
I can, and here's how you can do it.
Email radio@fanthatracks.com. Head to links.fanthatracks.com for links to our social media feeds, Fantha Tracks TV and Fantha Tracks Radio. Thanks to James Semple for the Fantha Tracks intro, Blues Harvest for our Making Tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. New episodes drop Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 o'clock UK time. Our weekly news show, Good Morning Tatooine, goes live Sundays at 9 o'clock UK time on Facebook and YouTube. And remember, Fantha Tracks is absolutely free, so it costs nothing to stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news.
And that's me done for this episode, Mark.
Nice one, matey. Let's do this again. Have a fantastic Star Wars week, whatever that means to you. And as always, may the Force be with you.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's Collecting Tracks.
Just realised I'm still bloody